Alright guys, Dominic here for Kit Guru, and you may have seen my review of the PC Specialist Falcon Pro from the end of March. That was a sort of very stealthy, minimalistic system that focused on performance rather than flashy lights or any gimmicks. Well, today it kind of feels that CyberPower saw that video and said, hold my beer, because today we're checking out the Infinity Ultra 7 RTX, which is arguably even more understated and promises cracking value on paper. Let's take a closer look at this pre-built PC. Getting right into things then with the core spec of this machine, CyberPower's Infinity Ultra 7 RTX is packing in Intel's new Core Ultra 7 27K Plus, which is all a bit of a mouthful, but it does kind of go some way to explaining the name of this system. We've also got an RTX 5070 GPU, 32 gigs of DDR5 memory, a 2TB Gen 5 SSD, and a Z890 motherboard from MSI. That's all priced at £2,099, so definitely on paper it does look like a well-balanced system, but let's take a closer look and see what it can do in the real world. Starting off with the basics then, the Infinity Ultra 7 RTX is built in Lian Li's very stylish Lancool 217, with its wooden accents adding a lovely touch. It does obviously have a side panel as well, but I have removed that for the sake of reflections. You can also see just how minimalistic this system is. Here it is powered off, and now it's powered on, and there's basically only the small motherboard debug LEDs adding any sort of lighting at all. In terms of the spec then, we'll start with the CPU, which as mentioned is the Core Ultra 7 27K Plus, which Leo was actually pleasantly surprised with in his recent review. It's got 8 P cores and 16 E cores, and it's remarkably good value at under £300, so it does make a solid foundation for this system. That processor is cooled by a 360mm all-in-one from ASRock, which is not usually the first name we think of when it comes to liquid coolers, but the Challenger Pure 360 looks decent, and as we will see later, cooling is no problem at all. We can also note two 170mm fans intaking at the front. There's another 2 intakes set on the PSU shroud area, while the AIO fans plus 1 extra fan at the rear are all set to exhaust. Positioned just to the side of the all-in-one, we find our 2 sticks of memory, which is Corsair Vengeance DDR5 in this instance, and of course the non-RGB kind. It's 2 sticks of 16GB for 32 gigs in total, and while the 6000 mega transfer speed and CL38 latency is really nothing special, speeds were fine in our testing, and it's really more about the capacity at this price point, for which 32 gigs is where you want to be. Just below that we have the primary SSD slot, where Cyberpower has installed the only drive, a 2TB Corsair MP700 Pro in this system, and that is a Gen 5 drive as well, so you are getting some very speedy storage, around 12GB per second read and write in my testing. Now, you could argue that SSD is definitely overkill for gaming, and you could actually save some cash by going for something cheaper. But if you are someone doing heavy workloads where you're going to be transferring a lot of data back and forth, you may certainly appreciate the inclusion. Then we come to the GPU, an RTX 5070, specifically we have MSI's Shadow 2X model. It's a very compact card, and you can actually see that the Lancool 217 has a built-in GPU holder, but the Shadow is too short to even reach that. So there is some empty space towards the front of the case. The one question mark around this GPU is undoubtedly the 12GB frame buffer, but we will talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. All of that hardware is plugged into MSI's Z890 Tomahawk Wi-Fi motherboard, another affordable but well-received component. I certainly didn't have any issues with it myself. It came with a recent BIOS installed, no glaring errors in the BIOS itself, and general performance has been very solid. However, and while I don't think it's going to make a big difference to the overall experience, CyberPower did let us know that this motherboard has now actually sold out, so all future orders of this system will instead come with the NZXT N9 Z890 instead. Powering everything is the Cooler Master Elite 850W, which is an 80 plus gold unit, and it's interesting that CyberPower has actually installed it effectively sideways, meaning the connectors are facing the side panel rather than towards the front panel. This means the regular PSU area has been blanked off with a blanking plate, and a small extension is used so you can still plug the power cable into the usual spot. Now, I don't think this is either a good or bad thing necessarily. It is certainly different, but I suppose it just makes things a little bit easier if you wanted to add in components down the line, as all of the PSU side connectors are that bit easier to access. General cable management is solid too. There is a little bit of bunching up around the PSU area, but generally things are neat and tidy around the back, and I have absolutely no cause for complaints around the front either. With that look at the system out the way then, it's time to dive into our testing, and we're going to start off with both CPU and GPU behaviour. We're first looking at the 270K plus CPU in Cinebench then, and this ran with a clock speed around 5.4 GHz on the P cores and 4.7 GHz on the E cores, though that does fluctuate slightly as we notice that reported package power does bounce around a little bit. It's mostly around 230 watts, but hit up to 260 watts at one point and occasionally dropped to 220 watts or so. But after 30 minutes, the CPU temperature settled in the mid 70 degrees Celsius range, so everything is absolutely fine there. As for gaming, we see very similar clock speeds, with 5.4 GHz being typical on the P cores, but package power is lower as we'd expect, right around 100 watts, and that results in lower thermals too, with the CPU barely over 50 degrees, which is great to see. The GPU meanwhile was pegged at just below 250 watts, which is expected for a 5070, and that was with temperatures in the low 70s and clock speed right around 2745 MHz, so all typical for RTX 5070 performance. It's also great that noise levels are kept well under control. There is a small hum or idle, but it really doesn't get much louder when either gaming or doing a CPU intensive workload, and you can hear for yourself with this sound test. I also used my thermal imaging camera and didn't see any areas of concern. The GPU is the hotspot as we'd expect, but even that was well within safe limits, and there were no hotspots across the motherboard VRMs or anything like that. Lastly then, just to confirm that CPU performance is as expected, I've run Cinebench 2026 with the 10-minute test and compared that to Leo's data from his launch day review, and as we can see here, we're right in the same ballpark at just under 10,000 points, so that's good to see. I did the same for Geekbench 6 as well, and it is just a touch under Leo's score, but that could possibly be explained by the memory difference as well, but it is certainly a minor thing. That brings us on to talk about gaming performance then, and I decided to focus on 1440p resolution. Yeah, the 5070 can do 4K in some cases, but certainly not in every game, and I thought 1440p would be the sweet spot. It also gave me the opportunity to try out a bunch of different settings, so we've tested in some titles with things like ray tracing, DLSS FrameGen, DLSS Super Resolution, but also we've tested some games without any of that technology, so you really can get a broad idea of the overall performance. Starting off with Cyberpunk then, this is ultra settings but using native TAA, no DLSS or ray tracing yet. We can see performance in this intense section is right around the 80 FPS mark, though it does hit into the 90s at parts, but performance is solid either way. Next, we're enabling ultra ray tracing alongside DLSS quality, and that does still lead to a hit to overall performance, given we're now in the mid-60s, though personally I do much prefer the visuals with the ray tracing on. Of course, the 5070 does also support multi-frame gen, and while this can increase latency as we've said in previous videos, MFG 3X is enough to boost FPS to right around the 150 FPS mark, and with a base of 60 FPS, latency will still be fine for most people. Next up we have Doom the Dark Ages, and once more at 1440p Ultra we've got no DLSS yet. We're in the mid 60 FPS range, sometimes hitting up to 70 FPS in this built-in benchmark. DLSS quality upscaling though is well worth enabling, as that brings up frame rates by a good 20 to 30 FPS depending on the exact scene, and if you enable MFG 4X on top of that, we're now talking about 250 FPS. Again, latency will be higher than if you didn't enable FrameGen, but if you prioritize visual smoothness, it could be something to consider. Now, Doom does also support path tracing as well though, but even using DLSS quality and MFG 4X, it significantly hurts performance, almost halving the frame rate. Changing gears though with Call of Duty Black Ops 7, we're starting with the basic preset using DLAA, and this is already hitting well over 100 FPS, but often into the 120 or 130 FPS region. DLSS quality upscaling though can bring that closer to 200 FPS, which is going to give you the best latency. You can get even higher FPS if you use MFG 4X, but for competitive shooters like this, I wouldn't recommend it as your base frame rate will be much lower. Horizon Forbidden West is next, and at 1440p Ultra using TAA, we're already at 80 odd FPS, so that is a strong start in this demanding area. There's no ray tracing support here, but DLSS quality will boost FPS further, getting us over the 100 FPS mark, and you can also enable regular frame gen 2, which will give you a further boost into the 160 to 170 FPS region. Now, Marvel Rivals is another competitive title, but even at low settings using DLAA, we start in the 120 FPS zone, which is okay, but could certainly be higher for a game like this. DLSS quality does boost that up into the 160 to 170 FPS zone, depending on what's happening on screen. And once again, you can enable MFG, but I just wouldn't recommend it for a game like this, as it will increase latency versus then just playing with DLSS quality. As for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, at ultra settings using DLAA, things are pretty smooth in the mid-70s, sometimes higher, and this game doesn't support ray tracing or frame gen natively, so DLSS Super Resolution is basically the only other thing we're going to try here, and that gives us a reasonable boost, getting us close to sometimes touching 100 FPS, but it does fluctuate a little. Lastly then, we finish off with Starfield, which runs just below 60 FPS in this demanding scene at ultra settings using DLAA. DLSS quality will give that a small boost into the 60s and sometimes 70 FPS mark, but you may want FrameGen for even smoother visuals, given that was more like 120 FPS in this scene, though other parts of the game do run significantly better, as this is really a worst case scenario. Closing out this review then of CyberPower's Infinity Ultra 7 RTX, I want to start by looking at the value proposition, comparing the £2,099 asking price to what it would cost if you built it yourself. Speccing up as close to an identical system as possible then on PC Part Picker brought me to around £2,170 at the time of filming, and that was before even adding a Windows license, which is of course included from Cyberpower. Clearly then, if you are in the market for a spec like this, you could save some cash by going for Cyberpower, and that's not to mention the fact it actually comes with their standard warranty as well, which includes 5 years labour, 2 years of parts coverage, and 12 months collect and return. Generally, there's not loads I change about this system either. One question mark I do think is the SSD, given the fact it's a Gen 5 drive, meaning it is very expensive. So if you're only going to be using this PC for gaming, you could well save some cash by going for something slightly cheaper. The other question mark I do think is the RTX 5070, particularly that 12GB frame buffer, which we have criticised in the past. Now, the situation has changed since the 5070 came out, and memory is now much more expensive than it used to be. It does just still sting a little bit to spend over £2,000 and only get a 12GB GPU, particularly if you're wanting to get into 4K gaming, where this GPU is going to run out of memory sooner rather than later. As we saw, still absolutely fine for 1440p gaming, but again, at the price point, particularly if you want to get into 4K, it is something worth thinking about. The rest of the build though has been beautifully put together. I absolutely love the Lancool 217 case with the wooden accents, and the fact it's a stealth build with no RGB will definitely appeal to a lot of people who are sick of the rainbow puke aesthetic. So yeah, it's a solid system overall, and I think Cyberpower have done a good job with it. If you are already looking to buy a spec like this, the fact that it is actually going to be cheaper to buy from Cyberpower than build it yourself alone probably makes it worth considering. As mentioned, there's a couple of things that could be improved, so it's not perfect, but generally a very solid system. Anyway guys, that is where I'm going to leave this video. So if you liked it, please do toss me a thumbs up, and as always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to ding that notification bell so you don't miss when we upload a new video. If you want to carry on our conversation as well, you can find a link to our Discord server down in the description, and while you're there, also find links to both our merch store and our Patreon if you want to help us out that way. That's it for this one though guys, I'm Dominic for Kit Guru, and I'll see you in the next video.